Hi, and welcome to Roofs Restorations. In this video, I'll be restoring a Woden engineering vise and creating a base so that I can use it on my woodworking bench. I hope you enjoy. Some of you may remember this vise. I refurbished it in a previous episode. When I bought the vise, the gentleman selling it threw in a bonus little gift. A teeny weeny vise. As you can see, it's a tiny engineering vise, and I have used it a few times, but really I need something bigger. When I saw this Woden vise showing up on Facebook Marketplace, it was only a matter of time before I bought it. So let's get the kettle on, make a cup of tea, and make a start on the project. One thing I would say is that I've no intention of making this a mint condition vise. I want to use it, so I'm going to try and tidy it up as best I can. I don't know if it's possible to see, but you can see that this is a blue colour here and a different darker blue underneath. The dark blue underneath is the original colour of a Woden vise. This has been painted more recently, although most of it's starting to come off, even this new stuff. So what I'll do is I'll take all this paint off, prime it, repaint it, and then use it as a working vise. So it doesn't need to be a mint condition. It doesn't have to look perfect, but I do want it to try and match it up with the other Woden stuff that I've got, just for aesthetic purposes. Where the thread runs through the middle of the vise there, this is where it sits in to create the tension, and it looks like I'm very lucky in that this is still in a reasonably good condition and it's already coming out, so I think someone has lubricated this quite recently. At last, finally persuaded it to come out. It's still got the original Woden bolt in there. It's still got a branded bolt, which has been there ever since the day it was put in. Next thing I need to do is to knock this pin through to release this so that they can drop the washer, and there's a spring in there. Need to get those out next. So let's see if we can do that. Took a little persuasion and the total abuse of a screwdriver, but I think we've managed to do it, yeah. This is a bit more manky in here. We've got bits of spider's web, we've got the spring, we've got the washer, and we've got a very manky pin. Yes, these all look a bit strange. I'm not sure what's been going on here. I'm not convinced that these belong on this vise. As you can see here, the screws on the jaws seem to stick out a little bit. When I finally got to test them, I realised that the screws weren't correct. But what happens when you push them in is that they don't sit flat. I don't know if you can see that, but they don't sit flat in the jaw. So that means this will mark anything that you put into the vise. What I need, it's not that they're too long, it's not that they're pushing out at the back, bottoming out at the back. It's the fact that for some reason their heads don't sit flush, even though they're pushed back as far as they'll go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a file. I'm holding it with a piece of leather because I need to hold it tight. I don't want to crush the thread. So I'm holding it with a piece of leather. I'm going to file the top off. I'm going to resaw the slot and hopefully it'll fit better. So let's give that a go. And now for the acid test. Make sure we haven't got a burr on there. Yeah, and now it's sitting below the surface. I might do a little bit more on it, but it's now sitting below the surface. Before I spray on the primer, I need to clean up and then mask off these places that won't be painted. I've already used a wire brush, as you can see, to shine it up reasonably well. What I'm going to do now is use some Scotch-Brite pads of different grits and some metal polish to try and clean them up before I mask them off. So now it's time to start taping up. So it's time to start painting. This paint is from a company called Paragon, which are brilliant for the sort of paints you need for woodworking equipment and all sorts of machinery. This colour started off as a colour called Roundel Blue, which is sort of the unofficial colour which everyone paints record vices and Woden vices and Woden kit. I think it's a little bit too blue, so what I do, and what I've already done here, is mix it with a little bit of black so that it just takes that stark blueness away. If I was trying to restore this for resale, maybe I'd be a little bit more careful about what I was doing, but to be honest, it's for me, so it makes no difference whatsoever. I'll have a look in the morning to see what it looks like, but I suspect I'll be putting a second coat on it just to give it a bit of a deeper colour and a bit more protection, probably. You can see this one's taken a bit of a beating in its life. It's obviously been used as an anvil quite a lot. I'll just pop a little bit of grease on this just to make sure it goes in okay and it doesn't rust in if ever I need to get it out again. So after a huge struggle, because this spring is about the strongest one I've ever come across, I'm having to use clamps to try and push the spring in. I've got it in now. It's a bit precarious, so I'm a little bit wary. So what I'll do is I'll pop this in while I can. And then carefully ease off each of these. As you can see, I had to use 2 dowels to push in against the washer to try and compress the spring, otherwise I just couldn't get it in. Every time I got nearly there, I nearly broke my knuckles, so in the end I decided to use a more mechanical method. Could do with a little bit of grease on the spring, back on the thread, on every contact surface I can find. Now that the clean off of the vise is finished, I need to create some sort of mount for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of 18mm ply. I'm going to probably use it on the end vise here, because if I use it on the woodworking vise, everything starts to come out. The vise is already out here, and if I have this one sticking out enough for me to be able to turn the handle, it's quite a long way out, and it's got quite a bit of a tipping action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sort of a cleat. I'll put that onto the bottom of the base, screw that through so that then I can tighten up on this side, so I can hold the base down solid there. And what it allows me to do is a couple of things. First of all, it allows me to put this vise roughly above the leg, so that any weight that I put on is transferred through the leg. A woodworking vise you don't put much pressure on. It's more of a holding device, whereas an engineer's vise takes a bit more of a beating. So it's better to try and keep it on a place where there's a bit of sturdy structure underneath it. So that allows me to do that. If I then bring the vise forward enough on the base, which seems quite close to the edge, but what it's doing, it's allowing me to clamp things in here. And obviously I wouldn't clamp this in normally, but it allows me to clamp things that are longer. So it allows me to have clearance so that the back jaw never moves. It's only this front jaw that moves. So as long as this back jaw is slightly proud of the surface going down here, I can mount things here, and I can mount long things. So I could have something that's 2 foot long, 3 foot long in here. So that's the reason for pulling it forward. It looks a bit towards the edge, but it gives me a lot more flexibility. And by doing it on this end with the cleat going that way, it's a lot more sturdy than if I brought it out even further to put it on the woodworking vise. It's going to be a lopsided base, but that doesn't matter. It's never going to be seen apart from when it's being in use. So. Do have to ask myself why I chose to use a handsaw on probably the hottest day that's ever been in Wales. We're in the middle of a heat wave at the moment, but hey. as you can see, there's a third hole there. So as I said before, I need to line this up with the leg. Line this up so that it sticks out a little bit, and then I think we can mark the holes with something like, yeah, so it's a 10.5 mil. But what I want to do first is I want to drill a pilot hole through, then use that pilot hole to countersink from the bottom, and then when that's done, go back to the top. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did, and I'll see you next time.